Deep Roots Productions.
Hello and namaste, listeners. Welcome back to the Community College Chronicles brought to you by the Deep Roots Productions. This is the place where we listen, learn, and live through the power of storytelling and conversations that actually matter. I'm your co host, Yagna Samvita Rangavachala.
And I am Lushana Stevens. We're so excited for you to join us today. If you ever wondered what it really takes to change the conversation around community colleges or how these schools help shape lives each and every day, you're in the right place.
Today's guest is a passionate leader in higher education and serves as the director of campus engagement at a community college. From student life to strategic planning, she's all about building community and creating meaningful student experiences. Please join us in welcoming Allyson Gleason to the show. Hi, Allyson. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Before we start our actual conversation, I wanted to ask you my favorite question. On the scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you feeling today?
Well, I am probably in the range of probably like 7 to 9. I have some really great things going on in my personal life. I got to do this today, and I am back to my office after a brief time away. So it's really nice to be back here on campus. So I'm super excited to have this opportunity, and I'm super excited to see you both again. And so, yeah, I would say like pretty high up on that scale.
Wonderful. I think we can work with that, and I'm pretty sure. I kind of want to promise, but then, of course, I'm going to promise it to you that we will try our level best to keep up that same energy till the very end of our episode. Perfect, then.
Fantastic.
Great. Then let's get right into it and start with our first question being, can you tell us a bit about your background and what inspired you to work in the higher education field?
I found my way into higher education in a pretty typical way. So I went to a 4-year state school here in Pennsylvania. Um, and when I was there, I didn't necessarily want to get involved right away. I'd been really involved in high school, right? I was involved in a lot of clubs and organizations. I was kind of that kid that kept going to school to do all the other stuff. I really enjoyed being involved, but I was so busy all the time. And because I couldn't say no to stuff and I wanted to try everything, I really overloaded. And then when I went to college, I was like, no, I want a traditional, like, dorm experience, right? What this traditional college experience concept was. That was what I thought I wanted. And when I got to college, I started doing that quickly to find out that that was actually not what I wanted. And so I started getting involved on campus. I became part of a larger subcommittee of their community government association. I got a job in the student activities office as a work study student. I was part of the honors college, and so I ended up taking an officer role after a year in that particular organization. And so I very quickly found myself getting involved again because really it was just kind of part of who I am.
Mhm.
And I always joked that I wanted to be our director of student activities at my college when I grew up. And nobody said to me, hey, that's an actual job. That guy has a job, and you can ask him how he got there. So it took me a little while to realize that was really what I wanted to do and figure out that there was a degree path for that through a master's education. And so I went back to school and then got my master's in counseling for higher education and student affairs, and then worked my way into the current role that I have now.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, that sounds exciting and very engaging, right? That's cool. Now, could you tell us though, what does your day to day look like as a student affairs director?
Uh, my direct my role in campus activities and campus engagement as a Department of Student Affairs is a very busy one. So one of the things that I like the most about my job is that I don't have a single day that's always the same. My job is very variable depending on what events we have and what time of year it is. But a typical day is usually coming in. I really guard kind of my beginning of the day and end of the day. I try not to take meetings before 10 a.m. or after 3. It's just a best practice that I have. At our college, have a common downtime. So by 11, the students are getting active, and I might have students popping in to see me before their meetings. I might have students trying to ask for resources for whatever they're doing for the day. That's a really common time to start our events. So
Yeah.
usually it's like it's prep, and then maybe a meeting, and then event stuff or student meetings, student, event planning. Then there's usually afternoon meetings about other events, or about other programs that we're trying to do, or other departments are asking questions, and I'm involved in some oversight committees and things like that at the college. So and then at the end of the day, I try to reserve a little bit of time to wrap up and prepare for the next day. And also because I find that the most like off the wall things that are going to happen in my day usually happen between 3 and 5
Mm,
in my personal experience. That's
right.
just how it happens.
Interesting.
Now that explains why I see Allyson Gleason everywhere in the campus. Like if at the Downingtown campus, you should reach out to Allyson Gleason. Like she can help you out. Like you are the first person that we could reach out to. So I'm glad that you're, the director of campus engagement. But before we actually go deep into, stuff, I wanted to ask you why community college? Like why did you think about working at a community college as a director of campus engagement?
So initially, when I started it out in higher ed, community colleges weren't necessarily on my radar. Um, I I took an internship experience at a local community college, not the one that I'm currently employed at, but I took a field experience there as part of my graduate program. And I very quickly realized that the student populations at a community college were just a little bit different, or a lot of bit different, depending on where you are, than, again, this kind of traditional college student that's coming directly out of high school and is following that 4 year degree path and is looking to live on campus and all of those things. At a community college, when we say diversity, we usually mean it, right? Our student population is not diverse, or is not, varied in the way where, the pretty pictures on like the college brochures. Sometimes those might be about as diverse as it gets. But
Mhm.
at a community college, we live it, we breathe it. We have students that are from 16 to 60, right? And beyond. We've had students that are even older than that, right? We have students that come back to us as a second career. We have students that come back to college after, you know, caregiving. We have individuals who come back to us to take prerequisites so that they can go back to a master's program. We have individuals that maybe went to another institution first and didn't find themselves
Yep.
there in a way that was meaningful, maybe didn't do as well as they wanted to, or sometimes life doesn't play fair.
Right.
And when life doesn't play fair, sometimes you need a different solution. And community colleges, a lot of times, are that solution. Um, so, the age variation, the life experiences that people bring to campus with them, the cultural perspectives, all of those parts and pieces that a person brings with them as a lens to a classroom. We see people with just such a wide lens, um, and it makes it really interesting to work at a community college, and makes it very meaningful to work with that student population. So when I was applying to to institutions as a new professional, um, I definitely included community colleges in that search. Admittedly, the one that I'm working at was the only one that called me at the time. So I didn't necessarily choose that job because it was at a community college. I don't want to misrepresent that experience. But I also am a believer that sometimes the right things find you.
Right.
And this was definitely the right thing for me.
Wow, that's such a cool story. I really want such a story. Like if, in the future, if somebody asks me why are you doing what you're doing today, I want to tell them such a cute, sweet story. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And
You're
we are
very welcome.
yeah, when you mentioned about diversity, where we had this thing come up saying that diversity in community colleges feel natural and it's not forced.
No,
Right. So when it kind of links back to how everybody's experience with diversity is the same. Like for me, it's the same. Like having conversations with people across all ages, all backgrounds. It's a different experience that I feel students need to get. Like I don't think we get the same experience at a four-year institution, and we really need such experiences to build on. So basically, my theory would be you don't get to live everybody's life, so you have to go at your own pace. But then, if you get to see what others experienced, you kind of know what to do beforehand. You know what I know? I don't know if I'm making any sense, but then you kind of know what's going to happen with that experience, so you'll have their experience in your experience list too. So yeah,
I find that my experience working with the students is the most meaningful part of my job, right? I got 99 problems, but the students are not it. I can't tell you the number of times a student will come to my office and say, "I'm so sorry to bother you." And I stop them and I tell them, "Listen, you are not bothering me. I literally get to be here and sit in this chair because you come in and want to do something or need something or have an idea. So you coming in to ask me about an event idea or wanting to start a club, right? That is not a problem. That is
right,
not something you need to apologize for. I get to do this. I get to hold events. I get to have a Halloween party. I get to have a new media lab. I get to have all of these experiences because you want to do them. If you didn't, then I wouldn't need this job and they wouldn't need someone to do this role here at the institution. And nothing bothers me more than the idea that there's somebody out there telling our students that they need to be sorry or that they're interrupting or that what their needs are not important enough
right.
to have that conversation. And each and every student brings with them a different set of experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And having worked with so many students and having learned about so many different individuals' life experiences and the challenges that they've overcome to be successful and the different stories that have brought them to this space,
Right.
I actually find that it's a much more, I'm a better practitioner
Right.
because I have such a varied experience working with students from so many different walks of life. And I think that I'm a better person and professional because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is why community college and the natural diversity that we have on our campuses is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. I think you exactly summarized what I was trying to say with experiences. Like I became a better person, a better student by attending a community college because I got to see so many stories that I don't think I would ever been able to see if I was in a foreign institution. Wow. I mean, yeah, you
Right.
exactly defined what I was trying to say in simple words. Like, come on, why am I making my life complex with complex words? Just go for simplicity. Can I just shadow you for a day? Like, this is
Yeah.
such a cool job. Like you get to make an impact with students life. That's great. Like when I think when we are having conversations about community colleges, one of the main thing that people tend to say is that they don't have typical college experience, and students don't get to have that college experience that they believe that they'll have in a four-year institution. So that leads me to ask you this question, like what exactly is this college experience that people are talking about? Like, can you decode it for me or dissect it for me?
So there is this kind of, I think it's a myth, right? I think it's kind of this myth of the typical college experience. No college experience is typical, right? Every single student as we've talked about, comes into college and their education with a really wide scope of experiences that they're going to use to inform the way that they move through their institution and their academic journey. And that's why there really is no typical college experience. Yes, there is a path that is generally accepted by society, that you graduate high school, you get accepted to a 4-year institution, you go live there for 4 years, and you get a degree after those 4 years, and then you come back and you're supposed to get a job, right? That's the kind of myth that was sold, particularly in prior generations. Nowadays, we know that that's not what happens. We know that students maybe try that path, and then for whatever reason, they come back. They come back home, and then they come to a community college. They might bounce around to more than one 4-year institution before they find their way to a 2-year school and say, hey, listen, this is actually better for me. There might be students who maybe can't find their way to a 4-year institution right away because maybe they have a chronic illness. Maybe their personal set of circumstances are not such that maybe they can go and live away. And so trying to get this idea that there's a one size fits all college experience really is detrimental to, I think, young people in emerging adulthood, where they're like, well, I don't fit that box. I don't fit that path, right? That's not it for me.
Mhm.
And I think trying to sell that to people is actually a little harmful, and that the community college can play a role for those individuals, saying, hey, listen, there are other options. And if you want a bachelor's degree, that's great. And we can still help you get to that goal. But maybe you do something else first. Maybe you try something else first, or maybe you just don't spend all of your time there. Maybe you spend some time here and then go there, right?
Hmm.
There are ways to get to that same end goal without taking that like perfectly linear path that
Right.
society has sold.
Right, right.
Mhm.
That that kind of goes into the next question of the whole traditional way of things, and it's just not like that like it used to be. But in your view, what makes community colleges an essential part of higher education in the US?
So I think that community colleges really are an essential part in the sense that we do some things that maybe 4-year institutions don't do. So we cater to students who maybe struggled a little bit academically, right? We are that stepping stone to get students to college readiness if maybe they weren't academically there yet, or maybe they were academically there yet but didn't have the practical skills, right? They didn't have the study skills, they didn't have the testing skills, right? There are so many things that are factors to success that we don't quantify here in the US, or don't quantify well, maybe. And it's really important to know that community college is here as an opportunity for students to be successful and for people to eventually be successful professionals and grow into whoever they want to be, right? Professionally, personally, we provide the opportunity to go into the workforce, right? So we have programs that are for workforce development, things like carpentry and HVAC. We have our municipal police academy. Our municipal police academy provides, I believe, 75% of the workforce to 2 counties. And we've really expanded the way that we're thinking about that, given the current climate of the world, and really trying to be the change that is needed, so that we all have a brighter future. But those aren't necessarily programs that you're seeing at a 4-year institution, right? There are other paths and other careers that you just don't see as part of the marketing and as part of the conversation around higher ed a lot of times. And again, that's kind of harmful. Like, hey, listen, you can be a plumber, and you know what? Plumbers make a lot of money. right? They make a lot of money, and sometimes you really need them,
Yeah.
right? So, there's a lot of opportunities out there that aren't necessarily talked about as pathways to success. Because career success is, we know through sociology, we know through all of these other studies that do happen in higher ed, but we know that career readiness and career success then lends itself to fiscal success and personal fulfillment and reaching all of those personal goals, right? Um, Being able to support yourself, to support a family, to someday buy a house if that's your goal, right? All of those things, they start, if you backtrack it, all the way to what you're doing educationally. But
Mm,
yeah,
mm,
right? So if you backtrack it, right, what the students are doing here hopefully eventually leads them into a career that they can then use to support themselves, right? And sometimes the four-year institutions, they just want you to study what they have,
Right.
and they're not necessarily talking to you about what is your personal goal? What are you trying to do? What do you want to do? Because there's nothing more disheartening than hearing that somebody went into a career field only to find out after they were done how much they hated it, right?
right.
And we know that that happens, which is
Yeah.
another gap that the community college fills, right? So if you
Mhm.
need to upskill or change careers, right, we're here for that too.
That's true. I
Interesting.
can say personally with me, I started out with a major of community, uh, uh, criminal justice. I started out. I wanted to be a PO, juvenile PO officer. No. I mean, don't get me, no, and I'm not even going to try to convince myself. No, it was nice while it lasted, but then um, I saw the bookwork. Learned that I had to learn law and everything, and unfortunately, that stuff went like, right over my head. Did not get it. I failed 2 classes because of that. You know what? No, no, no. So what I did was I did talk to my advisor, and she helped me with the personal development kind of spreadsheet course thing, and did an assignment, and then found out that communications is my thing. And now look at me. We're over here building a podcast, talking to people, getting to connect and everything. And that is where I need to be. So yes, I definitely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, interesting take. Now that you're talking about opportunities that community college do tend to offer, I am very curious. If you had to say like top three, like bullet point statements or something of that sort, about the key benefits that student gain from attending a community college, what would it be?
I think the first is probably related to the experience. The first benefit of a community college is that there's typically a higher touch experience. Now, community colleges do vary state to state, system to system. So you can't, again, much like you can't just shove one college experience in a box, you can't just shove one community college in a box either. But as a generalization, community colleges provide a higher touch experience. A lot of times, because we have students that are coming in from so many different experience levels, from so many different places academically, we really need to be prepared for whatever those students are bringing with them to campus, and to help them start wherever they are. And I think that's probably the first benefit. The second benefit is certainly the price tag, right? We know that college can be very expensive, especially depending on what kind of institution you're going to, where you are geographically, right? Colleges vary pretty widely in price, but your community colleges are still going to be able to provide some of the best value and still get you where you want to go academically. And then for a third benefit, I think that again, the diversity and the experience that you get on campus at a community college, not just the supports, which again, I think is probably number one, but just the experience you have interacting with other students, again, is a little bit different because you're getting people from so many different walks of life. I think that that really is a huge benefit.
Interesting. Weirdly enough, I can resonate and kind of look and like see myself in those three benefits because I did benefit in those areas when by attending a community college. Like, yes, I agree. Like, I'm the live example for you guys. So yeah, I think it makes a lot more sense hearing it from somebody who's work in the area. Like, it does make a lot more sense. Yeah, thank you.
Moving right along, what role do you think that community colleges play in supporting the local communities and economies?
So community colleges are a little bit different in the sense that we can be reflective of the communities that we live in and reside in geographically and as far as the programs that we offer. So we live in a fairly metropolitan area, so we provide a lot of medical professionals to our surrounding hospitals. The more people we have, the more medical services that are needed. And so you need more people to work there and to provide care. As I mentioned about a police academy, right? We are able to provide the workforce that are immediately going out into the jobs in our area. Our early childhood educators are the individuals going out to work in our daycares or be daycare program directors or go on to a four-year institution and become the teachers that work in our surrounding school districts. So we are a little bit more familiar with what the direct socioeconomic needs are of an area and also then what jobs and what workforce needs are for our region. And we have the ability to be responsive to what those are. So, one of the biggest challenges at our community college is that the businesses in the area that are chambers of commerce, right? They're saying we need more people in the hospitality industry. We need more people, we need more people. We need, if you drive around and you see, we're hiring and they're looking for people to cook, right? They're looking for people with those skills and they're looking for people who have the ability to work in a hotel and restaurant management and all of those things, right? As a major metropolitan area, we have a lot of those industries very richly in this region, but not everybody trains for that, right? Hospitality programs, again, one of those things that's not always at a four-year institution.
Right.
You might have a business degree with like a sub program in like a hospitality thing, but they're not teaching people how to actually cook, right? They're not teaching people um, some of the finer points of running a restaurant, right? All of those things are things that we can uniquely teach. And so we developed those programs in response to the need of the area and what chambers of commerce and business leaders are telling us. But then we didn't necessarily have the facilities to reflect that. But we had to find spaces that we could teach those courses because it required highly specialized training. So one of the things that we have been able to do as we are looking to expand our campuses is renovate for that so that we can provide that highly specialized knowledge and that hands-on experience that we hadn't necessarily been able to provide or provide it in a more meaningful way than we had been before.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Does
Thank you
that
for
make
reading that. Yeah, definitely. Because I came from a hospitality environment. I was a server for 7 years, and I wish I kind of kept with the hospitality in the sense just to have that, still have that knowledge and experience. But now I'm in the pharmaceutical field.
I'm pretty sure we could do another episode. Like, this is such an interesting topic that we could explore more in depth on. But taking a step back and coming back to the campus engagement aspect at a community college, um, what kind of leadership or engagement opportunities do students typically tend to find at a community college in general?
so the things that you'll see at a student engagement program in a community college a lot of times are very similar to what you would see at a four-year institution. Our programs might be scaled back, right? We might not be quite as big, as robust, like our state school down the road with their 300 clubs and organizations, right? You only have so many hours in the day. You're not going to be in 80 of your 300
Right.
student organizations. Like, that's just crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, you literally wouldn't have enough time for meetings
Right.
and to go to class if you were in that many student organizations. Like, what? No. Just because you have all the options, sometimes that can lead to decision fatigue, right? That might be too many choices. Um, but we, with our 30 club slate, still have a lot of options for our students to explore their interests outside the classroom. We still have social events and de-stress events and all sorts of things that are equivalent to the experience that you would get at a four-year institution, right? They bring therapy dogs, we bring therapy dogs.
Right.
A lot of times when they're block booking in the area, I'll get an email from a performer who says, hey, I'm performing at XYZ down the road, and I can give you a discounted rate because they're already paying for my, my travel expenses.
Right.
I can stay one extra day and, and come and see you. And we've done that before as well and block booked with our institutional partners in the area. So the same performer that they're getting down the road at
Mm-hmm.
that other institution, same one that we're getting here, right? It might be in the middle of the day and not at 9 o'clock at night,
Right.
but we still are able to provide that performance experience for those students,
Got it.
right? So we strive really hard in my area to not let the students feel like they're somehow not getting
Mm-hmm.
that same out of the classroom experience. They're not getting leadership opportunities. They're not getting jobs. They're not getting internship
Right.
experiences because we have all of those things too.
Well, by any chance, could you share a story, a student success story that illustrates the impact of a community college on a student's life?
I certainly can. I have a lot of them.
I was going to say
That
you probably have plenty.
well, you know, it's just hard to choose just one, right? Like I have been so incredibly fortunate, blessed. What you can pick your term. Um, to work with students who are so dedicated and have and a lot of times have overcome such great odds to go on and do the things that they want to do. I am still in touch with a student who started at DCCC because she has a chronic illness and was not able to attend a traditional four-year institution. She couldn't live away. That was not something that was really feasible for her. But she was a student leader here on campus and did all the things. She was an amazing student. She went on to be one of our graduation speakers. And then she went on and got her four-year degree and she got a master's. And her ultimate goal is to work in neuroscience. And she's now a doctoral candidate uh, at at a pretty prestigious institution for neuroscience. And
Wow.
she is just
Nice.
incredible, right? And the particular illness that she happens to have is considered one of the most painful in the world, and just her determination and her brilliance you know has stuck with me the entire time that I've been in this position.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's simply amazing. I'm out of words. Now that we're talking about all the benefits about community colleges, I think it's also important that we flip the coin and see the other side of the community college. So, what do you think is like some of the biggest challenges that students tend to face? Actually, no, I'll take a step back. Instead of talking about students, I wanted to ask you, first, I want to ask you, what are some of the biggest challenges that community colleges face today, either at the student level or institutionally, like both?
So I think that for the student piece, right, some of the biggest challenges that our students have when they come into a community college is that, again, students who come to a community college might find that they're not academically ready, that maybe it's been a little while and they've been out of a K to 12 setting for a while and they need to brush up on their skills, or maybe they just didn't have the focus or skill set in high school to be academically successful. And so we find that a lot of students who come to a community college maybe are not quite 100% ready for college level work. And again, there's a variety of reasons for that. Some of those challenges, academically, relearning how to study can be a huge task, or learning how to advocate for yourself and communicate with a professor or a college, right? There is
Mm,
this, what people sometimes call the hidden curriculum of a
Mhm.
college. Like, what is a bursar? I don't even know what that word means, right? And who are they and why are they important and what are they sending me this email for? And kind of navigating the systems that colleges have in place can be really challenging, particularly for first generation students.
Right.
Um, so I would say that's probably one of the biggest challenges for community college students. And then that's also why our new student programs, our orientations, the things that we do in the very first couple weeks of each school year,
Mhm.
a lot of that programming is designed to kind of help students be successful. But usually students are like, I don't want to do any of that. I
Right.
don't want to go to orientation for
Mhm.
3 hours. Right. But really we're like, no, 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 we're trying to give you all the skills and the tools and introduce you to the people. And,
mm,
and so sometimes it can be a little challenging because also sometimes students don't necessarily want to do the things that will kind of help
Right.
target those challenges that we've already identified.
Right.
right, right.
Um, and then at the institutional level, I mean, for community colleges, I mean, one of the challenges is funding, right? We're funded a
Right.
little bit differently usually than a four-year institution. We don't have, we're not like the big R1 institutions or a private institutions that have lots of endowments,
Mhm.
right? We don't we don't have we're not funded in the same way, right? We're funded
Right.
much more locally. We're funded we're funded by state governments. So when it comes to the resources, a lot of times community colleges are already doing a lot more with less, right?
Mhm.
Um, we also, you know, for our institution, our buildings were built in the 70s, right? So building practices in the 70s and what we need in the 70s aren't necessarily what we need now.
Yeah.
So, our aging infrastructure and kind of trying to update those things with our limited resources, or trying to renovate our campuses or renovate new campuses so that we can provide better service to students in the communities where they live. Trying to get the resources to do the things that we want to do, to provide the services that we want to provide for students that we know are critical.
Right.
Right.
Interesting.
Now, coming from, because me and Yagna, we came from branch campuses. When it comes to the challenges in bringing everyone together, how is that like?
So that is probably from at my departmental level one of my biggest challenges, that we want to provide an equivalent experience for students at all of our locations, but we don't always have, again, the same infrastructure, right? The buildings are just set up different.
Mm-hmm.
We have campuses where there just really isn't green space, or you have a campus that has green space but you're built into a side of a hill and there's 8 million steps, right? and and for some reason when they designed the building there's 16 exits. Well, when you don't have, one to two primary flows of student foot traffic in and out of a building, letting people know what's happening on campus, it's really hard to target them because they're coming out of a door down there and they might not even see what's going on, up here on a patio, right? Because they're way on the other side of a campus. And
Hmm,
and
interesting.
yeah, it's, each campus has its own personality and flavor and structure. And so I have to take all of those things kind of into account when I'm designing programs for each of the locations. But we want to try to make it equitable, right? Because those students also pay student activities fees. So how do we be mindful of fiscal responsibility? Really challenging for me to be mindful of all of those things. And I actually started out in my career at our branch locations, right? I started out servicing the locations that you talked about. Um, and so I am fully aware that those locations sometimes don't get the same resources all the time, or they have to share staff, or, and what that looks like for those students. So I know that sometimes those campuses feel forgotten about, and I promise I know. And I mean, I come to every single campus still. Maybe me as a campus activities director bringing food in, becomes more meaningful than just, hey, we're handing out some pretzels. Like that might be their only option if they don't have time between classes to leave campus.
Wow.
Wow, wow. Stressful. I was just, it's stressful. It sounds so stressful, but then, yeah, stressful.
Well, again, like,
Sounds fun. It sounds fun and
Yeah,
stressful, but hey,
yeah,
you work
it's
it.
stressful, but then it's fun too. So
Yeah.
it's like,
it, it,
yeah.
it is both. So multiple things can be true.
Mm-hmm.
It can both be stressful and also fun, right?
Right.
So again, the branch campus locations are smaller. That is part of what we can provide as a more personalized experience, right? You're not
Right.
competing with hundreds of thousands of students, right? You
Right.
might have to wait an extra day to see somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and as the personnel might travel, but you still might have access to them more frequently than say at somewhere else, right?
Right. Makes sense. When you're talking about student activities and campus engagement and all of that, being a branch campus student, I personally feel that I haven't felt like I was being neglected as a student when it comes to student life because I was able to I would say provide my end of contributions to the campus engagement or campus life through by joining clubs or organizations, student-led organizations like New Media Lab or Phi Theta Kappa and Honor Society. So talking about New Media Lab and all of that and all these events and programs that we always have on campus, something is going on every day. Can you share about a program or event that you started at the college that you're truly proud of?
So I'm not going to take full credit for this by myself, right?
Okay.
I didn't necessarily hatch this concept, but we had she's retired now.
Hmm.
Um, our social work program coordinator at the time, Professor Kathy Shank, she knew and knew way back, right? In about in when I started at this college in 2013, she had just started doing the work of talking about food insecurity and students who didn't necessarily have basic needs being met off campus. And so she used the social work club. She was the advisor to that club, in addition to being the head of the social work department. She used that club because the college was like, no, we don't have any resources for this right now. Like, we just don't. Like, how many students is this really impacting? Um, to start like a food bank, right? So the social work club for a great number of years ran what became known as our food emergency resource bank. And so Kathy did all of the research and early research on why this was important and how many students on our campus really need this, and how do we do this in a way that's shelf stable, and and where do we direct students who have a need greater than what we can address immediately, and what is sustainable for us as a club, right? So I helped her figure out what's sustainable as a club. How do we fundraise for these projects? How do we do drives? So at the time, all we were able to do was put together like an immediate meal kit bag of, say a shelf stable protein, um, and had like a canned fruit type item, and all of these things that were an immediate meal for students who had an immediate food need. We provided information inside the kits with resources that were out in the community for once campus was closed, where could they go, what could they do. I worked with our food service vendor to expand into our, again, like our prepackaged vending machine type things had bucks. So we were able to utilize that. So that way after hours, right? If a student identified as having, food need after hours, right? And there isn't somebody here in my office to grab them a bag or have the ability to give them access to where the pantry was. being able them, having someone be able to give them just an envelope with like a gift card in it, right? And be able to access our vending machines, right? And then that way they could choose what fit their dietary restrictions, right? Because sometimes we'd find that somebody needed a gluten-free bag, right? And if we don't have stuff that's gluten-free in the bag, then it still doesn't serve that person, right? So how are we, we did a lot of work in that 2013 through 15 kind of window. And when the club wasn't healthy, when we only had a club of 2 or 3 students, it was pretty much me and Kathy packing bags, right? With whatever, funds the club had available, those students had available and could shop for, and keeping it going because we knew that need was there. And the bag turnover was evident that the need was there from the students. And then I would say probably around 2017, 2018, there was a lot more buzz going on, right? There were a lot of papers coming out. People were talking about food insecurity on college campuses and student basic needs being met and some of these other things that, like, when a cafeteria closed, right? Or if they didn't have a meal plan, what did students do, right? Or if they don't live on campus and they commute, how are they taking care of themselves? Are they able to take care of themselves? And I will never forget that I received an email from a very well-meaning upper administration member at the time who was like, "Hey, are we doing anything about this?" And it was like a Philadelphia Inquirer article about food insecurity on college campuses and what other institutions in the area were doing. And we're like, "What do you mean? What are we doing? We've been talking about the FIRB and scaling it up, and then, trying to take it to our branch campus locations and creating bags. And, like, I'm delivering them to our campus locations when I go out and do my programming out there, right? We're doing our best to be equitable across our locations because the food need doesn't just exist at our main campus. It's not like, oh, there's not other people out there who don't go to our branch campus locations who also have that need. So how do we help students, meet their basic needs if money is tight, right? Kathy Shankett really, was the driver of this concept, but I do feel like I had a pretty big hand in helping her conceptualize how to operate this through the club. And then when we needed to expand, how to operationalize the expansion to our branch campuses. And then from there, when we wanted to start looking at other things that weren't just food, like, we started scaling up. We started looking at emergency mental health funds through our counseling center. And then we started talking about wraparound services. Like, how do we tie all this together, right? Students who usually have one of these needs probably have another. And eventually, all of that work that we did and all of the conversations that we had and the more people we brought in from other areas of the college all eventually became what's now our Essential Student Resource Center. It's its own department. We have partnerships with Philabundance and Wawa, and we have the ability to help students get to other campuses and have temporary transportation assistance. We have, again, emergency mental health funds. We have we also have something called our Dream Keepers emergency scholarship, right? If your car breaks down and you need something, we do have some discretionary funds for students that have emergencies. If you need to pay a really big medical bill or be able to pay for your tuition, we might be able to help you pay for part of that, right? We have some monies as part of our scholarship and our educational foundation to help support those initiatives, because we know that, again, sometimes life doesn't play fair.
Nice. Right.
And so the work that we did around that and the work that we were doing in, like, 2013 to 2015, I think was just so critical to what eventually became and is now our Student Resource Center. And I think that I'm proudest of the contribution that I made to that and keeping that going when it wasn't a popular topic, right? When it was really just students, and social workers saying, this is something that our students need.
Jeez, that's wonderful. And I do know the pantry, and that's great that after those so many years, right? Like 10 plus years, this is where we're at with it now, and it's still growing. So, my next question is, where do you see the future of community colleges heading over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think that higher ed is at a really critical juncture in general. Again, just because we've kind of talked about these pervasive feelings that maybe there isn't, is there actual value in a higher education right at the moment? Is there value in college? For community colleges, there's also kind of the stigma of 13th grade, right?
Mhm.
And that, it's somehow lesser when it's really not. But there's, again, kind of this myth out there about it. And I think that over the next few years, we're going to see, again, a pretty big paradigm shift in what higher education is and isn't. I think that we're going to struggle a little bit because, again, right now, people don't have faith in the higher education system.
Right.
I think that community college might be able not to capitalize because that sounds terrible, but might be able to view this as an opportunity to be like, hey, listen, if you don't want to go and do this other thing, we have the resources. We can help you get somewhere good and help you be a little bit further along in 2 years and then reevaluate if maybe higher education is still where you want to go or not. Um, we have resources to help you get through it without taking out oodles and oodles of loans. We also know that there are other major changes going on in the US. And so obviously the policies that lawmakers, put through are going to impact what we do, right? And so I think that it's going to be a challenging couple of years, but I think that community colleges might be able to be the stopgap, or again continue to be the stepping stone and step into kind of a spot where people who might be skeptical about higher education, we can be there to say, hey, listen, we have some opportunities for you, right? This is not an all or nothing
Right, right.
conversation.
Mhm. Alrighty. So for our last question, Allison, do you think the definition of college experience is going to change in the future?
I think it has to. I think that I think that the definition of college experience again has been very kind of linear and very narrow. I think we need to think about the college experience as a part of lifespan, right? Your college experience is not this be all end all sort of moment where then the next phase starts.
Mm,
College experience is something that has to kind of be woven through your personal journey wherever you're going, right? It's not broken into little pieces like, okay, well, now you're going to go to college and now you're going to work. And I think that does a disservice because a lot of students have to work while they're in college to afford to go. A lot of students need to maybe take a break for a minute from college so that they can focus on something else, right? Your college experience needs to fit your life.
mm.
You don't need your life to fit a college experience to have one.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, I like that statement. Ooh, I actually like that statement. Wow. Ooh, I like that statement. I can't stop saying that. But yeah, that makes total sense.
That's the one for the real. You're welcome.
Yes,
Yes. Ooh.
yes.
All right. I was definitely having lots and lots of fun in this conversation. I've learned lots and lots of things. But before we end and before we wrap things up, it's time for our lightning round game segment. It's called What Would You Do? Okay, so we're going to throw some funny, awkward, and totally realistic college campus scenarios your way, and you've got to tell us what you do in real life.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the first one. It's graduation day, and a huge storm hits. You carefully planned an outdoor ceremony, and that is totally at risk right now. And there's a full crowd waiting for you out there. What would your first move be?
So the storm is hitting while we are trying to run our outdoor ceremony.
Right.
So I like to think that I would have been ahead of that. I mean, I pretty religiously watch the weather when I know I have outdoor events.
Uh-huh.
So hopefully, if I've done my due diligence, we have a rain location or a storm location readily available.
Mhm.
So we would be shifting setup. We would be, maybe altering some signage. We would be adaptable to what's going on, and again have pre-identified a
Mhm.
space that would be indoors but at the same location.
The next one. 5 minutes before commencement starts, the student speaker backs out due to nerves. There's full crowd out there. What would you do?
So I like to think, again, that we will have done our due diligence. We have rehearsals for a reason. If the student speaker just flat out refuses to get up there,
Mhm.
we would probably allow them to choose a proxy and say, okay, if you physically cannot get up there, right? Like nerves are one thing.
Right.
I like to think that I'm backstage coaching them and talking
Mhm.
them through strategies that we already discussed, and I'm able to encourage them even if I have to delay the start
Right.
by by 5 minutes to give them a little more time.
Mhm.
I like to think that I hopefully would be able to get the student out there and be convincing enough. um, but if I couldn't, right, we would allow this. We would have to do some quick work on our script, and
Ah,
perhaps find a way to just add a line about in proxy.
right.
The speech that this person has written is the speech, right?
Right.
For
Yeah.
ADA compliance reasons, we have to utilize the speech that's written.
Right.
Everything, like the speech that's given on commencement day, has been very carefully curated, and it's already loaded to like the teleprompters
Mhm.
and written out for our closed captioning, right? So to deviate from the speech would it would cause a lot of people a lot of stress.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Moving out of the graduation and commencement ceremony because that's recently what we did. But the third one is you're hosting a virtual orientation and half the students are having tech issues or accidentally muted. How do you keep things upbeat and productive?
I mean, that's definitely not a hypothetical. That was basically the entire 2 years of my life, in the middle of the pandemic. Um,
Yes.
Lashana remembers. Yeah. So it's hard, right? It's hard to speak to a screen when you're getting zero feedback. It's hard to keep it upbeat and move
Right.
things forward. But usually for orientations, we would have co-presenters. So we would definitely have somebody in the chat helping individual students in the background while the other person is doing the crowd work.
Right.
I'm usually the person doing the crowd work because I like to
Mhm.
talk, let's be honest. So, you know, you make light of it, right? You know, queen of the mom jokes over here. Um, and you just do the best you can, right? You honor that experience. Like everybody at this point can relate to having tech issues.
Right.
And so you need somebody on the back end who's working with you. You need, as a facilitator, I like to surround myself with a great team and make sure that I have somebody who's really good at doing the background Zoom facilitation, right? And having a dedicated person just for that. So that
Makes
way,
sense.
when all of those things are happening, I can continue to do my job
Mhm.
while somebody is still serving those students.
Makes
Mhm.
sense. The next one. Two student clubs want to book the same date, same space, and neither wants to budge. What's your approach to finding a win win situation?
So this happens a lot, not just for student organizations, but also for departments at a college. I
Right.
am very familiar with this situation. And the answer is sometimes you just have to find a way to work together.
Hmm.
So the experiences that I've been doing have either been we scale up and we make something a large scale festival. What was originally just going to be one small to medium event and one small to medium event is now a festival event. And maybe my office tries to find a way to add like a third component. So that way it feels a little bit more like an intentional festival
Mm-hmm.
type event as opposed to something where we just kind of smushed it together.
Right.
Or we find if they're only committed to the day, not necessarily the timing, we can also do stagger start events where we could stagger events throughout the day. So they can still have their date, but maybe one starts a little bit earlier and one starts a little bit later.
Okay.
Right? There are ways to do it
Mm-hmm.
without everybody being unhappy. Everybody might have to give a little bit, but you can usually find a way to make it work together.
Makes sense. Okay. So you just have to work around it and you'll find a solution to it.
Yes.
Got it. Life lesson. The next one. It's a big campus event. The students scheduled to wear the mascot costume cancels last minute. No one wants to wear it. What would you do?
I wear the costume.
Did you ever have that experience?
Not professionally,
Okay.
but my very first job was working for Build a Bear Workshop. And as part of Build a Bear Workshop, there are mascots that sometimes visit the store,
Yeah.
and other people really don't like wearing those costumes.
Yeah.
And so I have that experience. And so if that were something to come up professionally, I can go back to my roots and
Mhm.
put the mascot costume on. But I think the bigger answer to that is if something needs to be done, and as a leader, like sometimes you just have to do the things that no one else wants to do,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to be the example, right? Sometimes a task is not going to be fun and not going to be the desirable one.
Right.
But like if I'm not going to be willing to do it myself, how do I ask
Others to do it.
my staff and other people to do it?
Yeah. Okay. Another life lesson. I'm going to write these down. The next one. You stop by a branch campus unexpectedly and find out a student club is hosting an event without any permits or staff oversight. What would you do?
So we I think it's a conversation, right? If a student group is hosting an event that we didn't know about, that means that we're probably not doing a great job of communicating with them,
Right.
right? So I would start by having a conversation. First, since I'm there and I'm finding it, I would do my best to make sure that they're in compliance with you
Mm-hmm.
know most of the generalized rules or any like procedures. Make sure that they have everything that they need, because if they're already doing the event and it's happening, shutting it down is not the answer, right? That's not
Right.
going to generate the goodwill. The answer is you salvage what you can out of it, but then we use this as an opportunity to talk about, okay, so this is what you did. This is not how we're supposed to do it. In the future, this is what you're supposed to do. How can I help you complete this process? And how can I help support you in your events? Right? Because that literally is my job, is to help
Mm-hmm.
support them in their events. And if they're doing events without support, they're probably not going to be super great
Right.
all on their own. And also, we want to make sure that it's a good experience for everybody.
Okay.
So,
Okay. The next one. The student government accidentally overspends the event budget before the semester's biggest activity. How would you coach them through this fix?
so if they have overspent their budget for the year and
Mm-hmm.
they want to do a bigger activity still at the end of the year,
Yep.
we would talk them through figuring out how to perhaps collaborate with other groups that have funding. I mean, I advise the student government, right? The student government is my club, so I think that this is probably a rarity. Like they would have been stopped before they
Right.
got that close.
Right.
But if if for some reason that happened, we would talk about how to collaborate with other groups to combine funding. We would talk about scalability. Is there a way to do this that we could spend less money, right? Is there something that we could, is there an activity, depending on what it is there something that we could cut out of it that
Mm-hmm.
would make it less expensive, put it back within budget? How do we manage the resources that we have
Right.
left to make this happen? Are there ways that we could find that my office could support, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there would be ways to talk about how to manage resources a little bit better and see what resources other clubs might have, see what resources my office has, and also just maybe scaling back depending on what it is.
Makes sense. Okay, last three more to go. A local news crew shows up asking to cover a campus event, but no one told you that they were coming. What's your move?
I call public relations.
Simple.
But listen, my job encompasses a lot of things,
Right.
but dealing with the news media is actually not one of those things. So it's really important to know when you are at the limit of your scope, and know when to phone a friend.
Right.
And it's always really important to me to maintain really good relationships with other people on campus and our other departments. So if a news crew shows up to cover something and I don't know about it ahead of time, and PR doesn't tell me that they're coming, because normally they're the ones who would coordinate that,
Right.
I'm calling PR so that they can do damage control, or if for some reason they just forgot to tell me, they can be like, no, you're good, please proceed, right? But the first order of business is to call and confer with PR office and phone a friend.
Got it. Know when to phone a friend. That's the mantra. Okay, the next one. A first year student wanders into your office completely lost and flustered on day one. They don't know how to read their schedule. How do you handle it?
I mean, this happens all the time, right? I want to normalize that experience before we do anything else, right? So, and I would do that for the student and remind them that this is totally normal, absolutely not a problem. We are here to help. Myself, my staff, we are here to help. And we coach them through reading the schedule. The question is whether or not they actually have the schedule, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes they don't actually have a schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're looking in their Canvas course, and it's something that they're trying to read off of a syllabus, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes room numbers change. So the first thing we would do is go into the system and pull their actual schedule and make sure that they're looking at the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then we would show them how to read the schedule, like, hey, here, like, you're looking at this is where your room code is. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're looking at the room codes, and then I would coach them through reading our room numbering system,
Okay.
which is not the easiest thing in the world. And if I happen to have a student leader handy or a student worker handy, if they're really lost or they're really flustered, I would see if somebody might be willing to walk with them and do like a warm handoff to their class.
That's sweet.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay, the last one. A student club is hosting an event, but their faculty advisor forgot to show up, and the pizza's already here. Do you shut it down or help them improvise the situation?
So if there is a student club hosting an event and their faculty advisor is supposed to be there,
But they don't
usually,
show up.
but they don't show. It depends on what the faculty member's role is supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, if the faculty member is just there as the oversight person, you know, if I don't have a meeting, then that's also me, right? Like, I'm going to step in and make sure that the students have a good experience, right? So I'll stay on and help supervise the event if that's what's necessary. But no, we don't. If the students have done all the work
Mm-hmm.
and have done the appropriate planning, we don't shut it down, right? We find a way to help them. Or if I personally can't be there the whole time, again, I phone a friend, I phone one of my staff, I call up one of my staff members and say, hey, what's on your, if I don't already know what's on their schedule, if they're not running an event elsewhere, or even my administrative assistant, right? If we have a work study student at the front desk, I might ask Miss Dawn to come on up and be like, hey, listen, can you hang out here with this club for a little bit and just make sure that, that they don't need anything and make sure that it works, right? If the students have done the work and put in the planning, we're not going to shut them down. We're going to find a way to make them be successful. And then talk to the advisor after the fact about appropriate communication around advising and just letting somebody know if they're right. Like a no call, no show from a faculty advisor is something that, you know, I would want to help coach them through, because that should be a professional courtesy. Like, hey, listen, like if you can't get a hold of the students, call my office, right? There's no reason that you can't pick up a phone and call my office.
Right.
So, and make sure that they have that number, right? If it's literally
Yeah.
like, I don't know how to call your office, right? Like, and I mean, and I give out my cell phone number to most of the faculty advisors. So for the most part, there's no excuse. They could call my cell.
Interesting. Wow. I think I had a lot many key takeaways in this game segment than I've ever had before. And I actually enjoyed this. I learned a lot of important information and real life lessons, and it's great. I enjoyed this.
But no, thank you so much, Allison, for your backstory, definitely, and just your overall experience at your college, plus just what you do in your day to day and helping us students succeed, right? This was a great conversation. I got to know you a little bit more and just excited to see where the whole student affairs really grow after this, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. I think even I've learned a lot more about how community colleges have that campus or college experience that people tend to think that they don't have. And I feel like I've learned more about that aspect of it and definitely got to know more about you. So yes, thank you so much for being here with us and collaborating on this wonderful, wonderful episode and conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, I was happy to be asked, and I'm happy to have conversations about community colleges, right? Obviously, it's something I'm passionate about, and thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you once again. And as we wrap up, I also wanted to thank our listeners for tuning in to today's episode, brought to you by the Community College Chronicles. We hope today's episode sparked something in you, whether you're a student, parent, educator, or just curious about what community colleges really has to offer. I believe this episode is for you to understand the campus life, college experience, and everything around it.
Definitely. Please, 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 please don't forget to like, comment, and share and subscribe to our channels. And if you really love this episode, please share it to someone that you know that may be experiencing this or may be curious about working in the college experience life and being impactful in some way for the students out there. All right?
Well, with that, I would conclude by saying keep learning, keep growing, and today it's going to be keep the conversation going. Until next
Mm.
time, this is Yagna signing off.
Stay unique, everyone. Have a great one.